This is September 29th, 2021, and we are continuing our look at Solomon's Song of Songs. This time we are in chapter 6, verse 11 through chapter 7, verse 1. My commentary entitles this, "The Shulamite is swept up in royal chariots." And so I will read these, three verses, and we'll talk about them. So first we start with the Shulamite woman speaking. "To a garden of nuts I descended to inspect the green shoots of the valley, the date palm, to see if the vine has budded, if the pomegranates have blossomed. Before I knew it, my yearning set me in the chariots of my kinsman prince." And now the speaker changes to women of Jerusalem. "Return, return, O Shulamite. Return, return, so we may gaze on you." And then perhaps a different group of women. "Why do you wish to gaze on the Shulamite as on the dance of the two camps?" So let's talk about this. This verse, these three verses, are set after the search for Solomon, when the Shulamite woman woke and Solomon had left, and she went out in the city, she was beaten, and then she found some other women. Then they searched out Solomon and they finally found him, and he was eager to have her. So after the search to Solomon, this begins the last segment of the Song of Songs. My commentary divides it up into 6 sections. This is the 6th section. So this is when they are married. They have been married for a time, Shulamite woman and Solomon. And it's going to introduce a section, the next section, where Solomon describes the Shulamite woman as being his wonderful, beautiful wife. Okay? So here it begins. She has found Solomon. He was in the garden. That's where he works. That's where he does his thing. That's where Christ does his thing in the church. The garden reminds us of the Garden of Eden. It reminds us of new life and the growth of life, both in the church and in families. So now she's been married for a time. She has found Solomon. She is part of his life as his queen. The church is part of Christ's life as Christ's bride, as his queen. And it says, "To a garden of nuts I descended to inspect the green shoots of the valley, the date palm, to see if the vine has budded, if the pomegranates have blossomed." So the Shulamite woman is going to the place where she knows that her wonderful husband works. She's going to the place where they find their original delight in each other. She's going to the place where he found her and took her away so that she could be part of his life. She's also going to a place which reminds us of the original perfection. And she's going to a place which reminds us of the idea of budding and new life, which in a marriage would imply the growth of children, right? Okay? So all those things come together in this imagery. We as a church, and she as a wife, the Shulamite woman, she anticipated future events. There are parts of our life in a marriage which are particularly good and delightful, and we want to have happen and share. So next month I will have an anniversary with my wife, and we will try to go to a garden, right? And enjoy all the wonderfulness of being together in marriage. We'll go out and eat. We'll spend time together. We will celebrate with our children. And we'll spend time together. And we'll do those things which make marriage a good thing, which make marriage a delight. It isn't always a delight, right? Sometimes there are struggles and strife and problems. But she's going to this place which reminds her of all the good things in marriage, to the garden. And she's trying to find out if the green shoots, the dates, they're ready, if they budded, if they blossomed. If it's time for some of the eschatological, which means the end times, if it's time for some of those things to occur. So in marriage, is it time to have a child? Is it time to come together again and enjoy each other's company? Is it time could run through the various things. Is it time to change up what we're doing? What's happening? She's looking to the life-giving things. Is the anticipation and the work that we have put in and the time that we have put in together now going to come to fruition? Maybe to a small fruition and then to a larger fruition. Okay? And we as in a marriage, certainly we look at these things and we wonder. We look to the future and what good things might come, what might be. Children, retirement, vacations. You can run through these things. A new home, eventually going home to be with our Lord. All times which we anticipate the coming of. Probably the last one, hopefully, we don't anticipate it, but we know it's going to happen. We anticipate the coming of, and we want to see, is it time for that to happen now? And certainly, we like to look ahead to these things and plan to these things and enjoy our marriage, not only for what is occurring now, the wonderful immediacy of having a person who is flesh of your flesh, but also with the great gifts that God often showers upon marriage. Sometimes they don't happen, but God often showers these great gifts. Now, from the church's perspective, when it goes down to see if the shoots have blossomed and ripened, we have these things we anticipate too, particularly the second coming of Christ, when all things are made anew, particularly baptism and communion. Baptism, when a new person is brought into the family of Christ. Communion, when the Lord comes to be with us in his body and blood. We come and we anticipate these things. We come to his garden, to his place of peace. We come to his church, and we look forward to these things. In Advent, what are we celebrating? The past coming from Christ and the future. It's an anticipatory season. Confirmation, what are we looking forward to? We're looking forward to that day when our youth reconfess the things that were confessed to them when they became part of God's family. And now they can have the very body and blood of Christ. You can run through these things, right? If you're seeking a pastor, you anticipate the day when he comes. And you can start again in the life of a church guided by one of the under-shepherds of Jesus. And in marriage, there's many of these anticipatory. So in the life of the church, we go to church. We go in to celebrate with Jesus, to where he is, to where we know he's working. And we anticipate the great gifts that the church will receive. Just to reemphasize that in our individual life, we anticipate maybe the gift that Christ will add to our families and add children to them. Right now, my wife and I are anticipating a marriage and maybe grandchildren after the marriage. Wouldn't that be good? Okay? Okay, and then 12. Before I knew it, my yearning set me in the chariots of my kinsman prince. In my yearning, I go to church. In my yearning, I go to the place where my husband is. And because I am in the place where my husband is, my husband sees me, and he lifts me up to be with him, to be part of what he's doing, and to head toward the great future that is anticipated. Okay? When you are around your spouse, and your spouse is around you, I'll tell you, as a husband, when my wife is around, I am delighted. And often I want to have her share with me in the joys of what I'm doing and the joys of what is coming. Okay? In the church, this is even, a much even stronger image, right? When we go to church, when we are in the place where Christ is working, Christ lifts us up. He makes us his bride. He makes us his heirs to the kingdom. He makes us greater than the angels, part of his glory. And he puts us in his chariots as part of his work. And the church is carried along by Jesus in the great things that he's done, leading to that final greatest day when all sin will be destroyed and all who believe in Christ will come to live forever in his kingdom as his heirs, his bride, his children. There's so many images. My brain was just bubbling with what we will be. Okay? 7. Return, return, O Shulamite, return, return, so we may gaze on you. Why do you wish to gaze on the Shulamite as on the dance of the two camps? So now we have these others, probably the virgins of the city, maybe other wives of Solomon. The Shulamite woman has been placed above as the wife, the one. And we have these others who are saying, hey, our life was made better by your presence. You went off to be with the prince, and the prince is taking you away. Well, come on back. We want to share with you. Not only that, because when you come, the prince tends to be here too, right? So if you get the beautiful bride, you often get the wonderful husband, okay? So return, return, so we may gaze on you, so we can see what the prince has done, how he has made you so glorious. Certainly, this does reflect the time of the Shulamite woman when the women would be amazed at all the great gifts Solomon gave. And then there'd be hope for them that they might get great gifts as well. But this is really, really a powerful statement about the church. We've been given great gifts of Christ, and we are supposed to be out in the world as a light to the world. And when they see the great gifts that Christ has given us, love, peace, honor, forgiveness, a sense of contentment. When they see the great gifts that Christ has given us, how he has made us his bride, adorned us in glorious raiments, they want to see this. It changes who they are. They see the church as Christ's bride, and they would like to have the same, something similar, right? They would like to be also bedecked, loved by a spouse to no end. And so when we see a good marriage, sometimes we want to be with those people. I tell the young people in congregation, get to know the people who have been married for 50 years. See how their marriage has worked and how it's lasted. See the great gift that it is. I tell parents, treat each other well in marriage. Show to your children how wonderful your marriage is. They're going to see some of the problems, but they're also going to see the great and wonderful times. And when they see them, it's going to guide them toward that same kind of marriage. Not the same marriage, but the same kind of marriage. And certainly as the church, we are to be this example, this city on a hill, this light to the nations, this glorious bride who others see and they say, wow, I want that. And so that's where the rhetorical question that comes after, why does this fascinate you so much, this beautiful bride? I say it's a rhetorical question because the answer is obvious. Because in it we see perfection. We see what is meant to be, how God created originally man in his image and created them to be in that relationship with him and relationship with each other. And so when you see a good marriage, why are you gazing on it so much? Why are you so fascinated? Why do you want to know so much why this marriage is good? Is it like a dance? A beautiful coming together of two different people who now cooperate? The answer is yes. And from it, we can learn to dance. We're going to close there, and I'll talk with you next time about the next section, where Solomon describes again his beautiful wife.